So, Preston, Game of Thrones just released its Season 8 teaser. I wasn't a big fan of Season 7's teaser, the one where they're just all walking towards their respective thrones and Jon his chair.
That's the only one I remember. I'm not sure what the teasers were for the previous years.
I do like it when they film new footage specifically for the teaser, because I wasn't a huge fan for the one for Season 7, mainly because they didn't really bring much in terms of hype. It was more promo than tease, which is supposed to hype you up. This is a little more ominous and interesting, more so than hype, but because it's been over a year since we've gotten any thrones, the hype will be there regardless.
I guess there was a little bit of new footage when they were like Dany, Cersei, and Jon were just walking, right? And then Cersei sits in her chair, and then she breathes out, and it's cold, and you see her breath. I mean, I guess technically that's new footage, but this was a bit more, I suppose, because you actually see like the expressions on their faces as they look at these statues or whatever.
Let's talk about the statues. People are saying that Arya and Sansa are going to die and Jon's going to survive, mainly because in the statues we see Sansa and Arya's are young and Jon's looks a little older.
I mean, I looked for that, but I couldn't really tell. I mean, in the end, the statues just don't look that much like the original person, so it's hard to really make the comparison of like who's old and who's young. But who knows? I mean, maybe the question is, okay, the prop department like made these statues. Did they do it just for this teaser, or do you think it's like because it's going to be in some sort of dream sequence or non-dream sequence, like they actually are going to have a scene with those statues?
I doubt we're going to have a scene with those statues. I would love if they just made it for this teaser, because it makes season 8 that much more exciting, that they're going all out for this stuff.
Yeah.
But hey, we finally get at least Arya, Jon, and Sansa all in one clip, but we get no Bran.
Yeah, I guess that's true that we haven't had the Arya Jon reunion yet, right? So that's actually...
That's the one thing we haven't had
Yeah,
yet.
that's, I guess, the first time the two of them have been on screen in a long time, in years.
Wait, did Jon meet Bran back in Season 7? I don't remember that.
I mean, Jon never met Bran. No. Jon's never met Bran. Not since the first episode has Jon been in a scene with Arya or Bran.
Well, not since Season 1, Episode 2. I think that's when Jon visits Bran while he's in the coma, and then he leaves, and like Catelyn gives him that
You're right.
face.
Because the first episode ends with Bran falling off the tower.
Well, Bran is noticeably absent, and the one reason people are giving for that is because he's no longer a Stark or Bran. He's the Raven now. All the memories that have flooded into him from other people have overloaded his system, and he's just not the little boy we remember from previous seasons, and therefore he's not in the crypt beneath Winterfell with the other Starks preparing for the coming threat.
Right. I would say though that's just reading into it. Like one could argue, oh, well, Arya's no one, you know, but she retook her identity, so she's a Stark again. But you know, I think it's just they didn't want a scene of Bran getting pushed down a hallway in a wheelchair. Like, I think that's really like that's really it. Like they didn't want that scene. I think, you know, people reading into it that oh, he's no longer a Stark, he's the three-eyed Raven is a bit far.
Someone bound by a wheelchair ruins the badassness of the scene.
Yeah, you know, just like getting pushed like by some servant in a wheelchair, like you know.
Wait, Sansa could push him. She's tall enough to where like she could see over Bran sitting down.
Oh, I mean,
like, you know, you can see
she could totally do it. But what's funny is, do they even show? I don't think there's actually a scene where we get to see Bran's wheelchair getting pushed. They just leave him out by that tree, and then he's in his room. You know, no, we haven't seen him get pushed yet.
Maybe he moves himself like around like Professor X from X-Men. Like, you know,
right. It's actually telekinesis.
Every once in a while, everybody goes, "How did Bran get here?" Never mind. Whatever.
Never mind. It's just something. It's like characters going to the bathroom. You know, like we just assume they do it, but it's never shown.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we talk about the voiceovers?
Go ahead. So you mentioned something I actually haven't seen anyone really talking about in regards to the books.
Well, so they have the 3 voiceovers, which is funny because it's 3 voiceovers of things that don't happen in the books at all. So like the first one is like Lyanna saying protect Jon to Ned, which, you know, some people think that happens off screen, but we have no evidence of it. It's just so they have that first as Jon walks by a statue of Lyanna, and then there's like the feather that Sansa left for Lyanna, or maybe it's the feather that Robert left for her, but nonetheless there's a feather there that falls on the ground in some sort of symbolic way. I'm not sure what the hell that would mean, but a feather falls. And then Sansa then walks by Catelyn's statue. And this is funny because the voiceover is a scene that they added that I thought was completely out of character for Catelyn. But in the early seasons, the show adds a scene where Catelyn feels totally guilty about never loving Jon and never being nice to Jon. And she thinks that all of these bad things are happening to her family because she was mean to Jon. It's kind of this out of nowhere thing because like book Catelyn is pretty unapologetic about being mean to Jon. She doesn't care about him. She barely thinks about him. You know, we have one scene where she's super mean to him, and then, you know, he doesn't, you know, Catelyn thinks about him like, you know, maybe 2 other times, not well, but there's never any guilt.
For those of you who don't remember, this is the scene, Catelyn, she's saying this to Robb's wife in the show, Talisa, on their way to Harrenhal, I believe, or on their way to the twins. And I think the reason they threw that in there, if it's not in the books, I think the reason is that to make the audience feel not only feel more sympathetic to Jon because he is at that point going to be our main character, considering Robb was about to die that season, but also to give Catelyn some type of redemption.
Yeah,
and to further like put in there that like Jon was kind of an outcast even by Catelyn, because I remember in season 1 it's kind of alluded to that she has a problem with Jon, kind of alluded to. It's never really solidified. Here it is in that scene.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's so much in the fandom. There's so much cat hate, like which. And a lot of people suspect that it's, you know, on some level something sexist, that, you know, boys don't like reading about these women characters. They relate more to the male characters, because it is true when you go on the fandom and you see like character hate. Dany's hated, Kat's hated, Sansa's hated.
Sansa's hated because some of her stuff can be boring, though. When you break down like the Sansa stuff, you actually make it more interesting because you go into so much more things people don't realize in the Sansa chapters. But I'll defend the Sansa hate slightly. It's because sometimes her chapters can be a bit boring, especially during the first 3 books.
Yeah, I will grant that. I think that once she becomes Elaine, the chapters become super, super interesting. But I do think you're right that the Sansa chapters are not that exciting in the first 3 books. Well, I mean, I guess they get kind of exciting once Joffrey dies, and she runs off to the Vale, but which is really when like her story begins. Like I would argue that Sansa's story gets interesting when it starts being Sansa's story, like rather than just being another perspective of what's going on in King's Landing, you know. Like, oh, this is the battle from Sansa's perspective, or this is what Tyrion is doing from Sansa's perspective. You know, this is what's happening with Ned from Sansa's perspective. I mean, that's kind of how she's used in the first 2.5 books, and then once Joffrey dies and she flees, Sansa's story becomes her own, and I think it becomes really good. But this is more about like cat hatred. Like, why is there cat hatred? And a lot of people really point back to like the one scene where she's mean to Jon, you know, and it's like, yeah, give her a break. Like, you know, she's mean to Jon once. Boo-hoo. That's the way I feel.
You made the argument before that Catelyn is probably one of the smartest characters in the books because she always makes the right move. Like, everyone's trying to do like stupid moves, but she's the only one doing the right moves.
Right. After the first half of a Game of Thrones, she stumbles in the first half of a Game of Thrones. I think everybody recognizes that kidnapping Tyrion was a really dumb move. But after the kidnapping of Tyrion, she suddenly becomes a super genius and is like much smarter than everybody else. But and makes all the right moves. Like, don't trust Theon Greyjoy. Well, she was right, you know. Like, don't betray Walder Frey. Well, yeah, she was right, you know. So make peace, you know. That, you know, tells Renly and Stannis to make peace. Like, all these different things, but. Yeah.
Well, it's also funny how, like, we have Arya and Sansa both walking, you know, in the crypts with Jon, and all the voiceovers about Jon. I mean, even a Ned Stark voiceover, which you also said wasn't in the books, which I don't remember. I love A Game of Thrones. It's my favorite book, but I don't remember all the Ned and Jon scenes together.
Because there are none.
Yeah, so that's original show only, that scene between Jon and Ned.
So A Game of Thrones, Ned thinks about Jon shockingly little. Like, he thinks about, like, he mentions Jon maybe, like, you know, 3 times. It's an incredibly small amount. And this actually gets into, like, why, like, when I first started my channel, and I did my first video on the Pink Letter, and then I did the Dornish Master Plan, I was getting all of these requests to do an R+L=J video. And so I spent a whole lot of time, like, listening to the Ned chapters over and over and over again, trying to really pin down, like, why, you know, I had this, my original idea was, oh, you know, there's totally going to be something with Bloodraven, like, and R+L=J and him guiding Ned. And I went back and I listened through everything again over and over, and there was just nothing about Jon, and none of it made sense. And, like, I wasn't able to construct that video, which is why my video eventually was, you know, was an R+L=D video instead, which, you know, caused all this controversy and you know, 1,000 haters bloomed. But that was a huge thing for me, was reading through the Ned chapters, 15 chapters of Ned. And Jon is mentioned like 3 times, and he's just nothing. Like,
Ned thinks about Dany more so than Jon.
Oh, much more. Ned thinks about what he ate for breakfast more than Jon. I'm exaggerating there, but Ned thinks about, for instance, Sir Hugh from the Vale more than he thinks about Jon. You know, like, or
Jesus.
Ned, you know, like, it's just all Ned, you know, so. But nonetheless, the show, of course, has shifted things where there's much more obvious Jon focus of the show, and so they added a scene where, yeah, Sean Bean and Kit Harington are on the King's Road ready to part ways, and he tells Jon, you know, that
when they meet again, he'll tell him about his mother.
Tell him about your mother, and, you know, you're not a Stark, but you've got my blood and all of this. And so, and a lot of people really read into that scene like, oh my God, that's such an important scene. This is back when we kind of forget that when first season came out, everyone was really, they thought of book and show as the same thing. And so people were watching the show for spoilers about the book more intently. And everyone was looking at that scene and being like, oh man, is that an R+L=J, like, hint? Like, what can we extrapolate from that? But the and so they included one of the lines from that. So his the Ned line about, you're not a Stark, but you've got my blood.
Even though this is supposed to be like the Stark teaser with all of them there, the focus, again, is on Jon and him only. Like we've said on here before, the show needs that one male protagonist for everybody to lean on and give them, you know, someone to root for, when in reality, back in the books, he's just not that special. And I still find it weird that Bran isn't in this. I'm watching it now, and just thinking on it, I feel like it's probably because the prop department didn't want to construct his wheelchair or something.
That too.
That's probably what it is.
No one wants. I mean, like, no one wants a guy in a wheelchair for a sculpture. Oh wait, except for the FDR memorial.
There is. It's weird that there's such a focus on Jon here, which, I mean, to be honest, even in season 7, we were having, I'm sure the writing team was struggling to give, as we saw in the actual season, Sansa and Arya things to do, and I'm sure they're going to continue to struggle in this season to give either of those characters thing to do. More so Sansa than Arya. Arya can always just, do that Yoda backflip thing with the White Walker fight scene, which you swear is coming, and I definitely believe you.
No, yeah, totally. She's gonna do a bunch of flips, cartwheels, and then she's gonna stab a White Walker with the dagger that the cat spa tried to kill Bran with, and he's gonna shatter, and it's gonna be totally badass. That's what they're gonna do with Arya. Okay, I don't know what else they're gonna do with her, but I'm pretty sure that scene is gonna happen. There's gonna be
God, of course it's gonna happen.
There's gonna be some cartwheels and flips, and Sansa. I think all they're gonna do is they're gonna try to like pump up this like jealousy of Jon thing.
That's what we thought originally was going to happen in season 7, but that never fully manifested. It might happen in the books if Sansa ever does get back to Winterfell and Jon and Stannis eventually win over the North or whatever, if that happens that way. But when I made my my clickbait video, which, by the way, thank you for the title. You definitely got to give me one for this video.
It was a great clickbait video. I'm sorry you got so many haters. Got so many dislikes. The dislike record.
It's honestly it's well deserved. But the one thing I said in that video is how like if they had more episodes, the whole thing that could be done here is Sansa's political fallout, because many of the Northern Lords don't like the Targaryens, and Sansa giving Winterfell to Dany would have some, fallout for her. So my thought was, if they had more episodes to do this plot, was for Sansa to give Winterfell to Jon, and Jon would obviously give it to Dany. That way there wouldn't be any political fallout on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much intriguing, like, political stuff that could happen. The problem is that we just don't have time. Like, the minute we get into any sort of, like, fighting and, infighting about how Sansa should be the real leader of the North, and how Jon knelt, and the bitterness that Northerners might feel about that, and how complicated it would be politically. Well, the zombies are already freaking halfway to Winterfell, so it doesn't. Yeah. We don't have any time. We don't have any time for that. So they're gonna play off it like the one scene we have, which the one teaser scene we have from the HBO teaser is Sansa saying Winterfell is yours, and yes, we sense that little bit of bitterness in Sansa's voice. Yeah, and it doesn't matter because the zombies are coming.
But no, that always really bugged me with season 7. Like, House Bolton was a huge threat for like 3 seasons. It was a huge thing. They were the cause of the Civil War. They were the cause of many atrocities, even in the books. Ramsay goes around doing whatever the fuck he wants. And then one of the first scenes in season 7 with House Stark is they forgive Alice Umber and Ned Umber and Alice Karstark, but no mention of the Bolton lands. What do we do with it? Do we tear their castle down? And I'm sure there's some stragglers in the Dreadfort. No mention of that. Northern politics is always cut from the show, which really bugs the shit out of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, has anyone conquered the Dreadfort yet? No. Oh, okay.
Look, you would think Sansa would want that fucking place torn down and, like, salt thrown all over it just so nothing would grow there. It would be fucking dreary.
Or you'd think that, like, there'd be, like, some fourth cousin of a Bolton or something who'd all of a sudden lay claim to it.
Right, there's always a fourth, in the books, there's always, like, a fourth cousin or one guy who was kind of like a distant relative, twice removed or some shit. There's always that guy. Always.
There's gonna be somebody, something's gonna happen, but no. It's, certain things are just going to disappear. I mean, in the 6 episodes, do you think we're going to even see Robin Arryn? Like, do you think Sweet Robin will make an appearance in season 8? Or is he just going to be a forgotten character?
I'm actually more worried about Edmure Tully. Like, that motherfucker had, 15 minutes of screen time altogether. Like, at least Sweet Robin had, 30 minutes of screen time. If they were smart, I think on the very last episode, if Dany is going to conquer everything, I would have Dany in the Iron Throne Room and have all the remaining members of all the houses come together and pledge loyalty. That includes Robin Arryn, Edmure Tully. Ilaria, if she's still alive.
Oh, like they get her from the dungeon? You think Ilaria's still alive?
Oh god, Cersei's gonna keep that bitch alive.
The Tyrell cousins that Marjorie mentions that were somehow disappeared and
yeah. Holy shit, who's left? Tyrion, of course, for House Lannister as a representative, and maybe Sansa. That's like they would gather all the remaining lords and ladies that can take over.
It'd be like the end of a Star Wars movie where there's like, you know, the cast call at the end, you know?
Oh yeah. All the soldiers are there, they all turn around.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I have a feeling that I would say that there's like a 50-50 shot of whether we're going to see Sweet Robin in the last season.
And I would say at least everybody at least once, one more time.
I would say there's like a 25% chance that we're going to see Edmure.
Yeah, like we need to see Edmure. We need to get like some resolution on Ilaria because Cersei said she was going to keep Ilaria alive for as long as possible. So.
I mean, I think Ilaria. It's like the High Septon. The High Septon's still in the dungeons too.
Not the High Septon. The
No, the High Septon. The High Septon before the High Sparrow.
Oh, I don't remember that.
the guy they caught at the brothel and they marched him through the streets. Cersei said
fat guy, yeah.
Yeah, the Cersei said that she put the High Septon in the dungeons, and then the new High Sparrow was like, you know, like given the title.
I thought you meant the Septa, the one that goes shame.
Oh yeah, Septo Nella. She should still be. Who knows what happened to her? Man. So many loose ends. It's like my thing of where's Jeekwe? Where the hell is Jeekwe? What happened to her Blood Riders? Her Blood Riders just disappeared. She got new Blood Riders, which is really frustrating. It's like you didn't need to get new Blood Riders. You had the old Blood Riders.
But yeah, no. This teaser was not bad. I do like the new footage. I doubt we'll be seeing this certain footage in the actual final season itself, but I did like it. It's a nice tease. Still waiting on that trailer, but I will say though, I do hope that they don't give too much away for the final trailer. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a major thing I fucking hate that movies nowadays always do. They did it with the Terminator movie Genesis that Emilia Clarke was in, where they gave away huge like major plot point in it where John Connor, somehow the machine infects him and he is the new like the new machine that comes back, and that was spoiled in the trailer. You're like, come on, dude, that would have been a great twist, but they fucked it up in the trailer. So hopefully when the trailer does come out, the full blown one, we get like, you know, as little as possible. If that's even possible.
And I'm not saying that we're not part of the problem, because we're gonna take that trailer of a bunch of flashes of dragons and armor and White Walkers, and we're gonna piece together the entire season, which is just what people do. But it is getting really bad because people said that like the new Ant-Man movie, there was no reason to see it because all of the fun scenes were in the trailer, you know, and you're just checking them off one by one, like that's from the trailer, you know. Yeah, it's too bad. It's gonna happen. We're gonna spoil it, and yeah, it's rough.
Well, the one thing I'm hoping will not happen is, because this happened last season, is the leaks. The leaks I'm hoping won't happen. If they do, we'll cover it, unfortunately, because, you know, that's the new thing now. But I'm hoping nothing will leak this time. I hope HBO has a lid on everything, because and if they don't, like, the one cool thing I would like that if they do that, they allow certain things to leak that are false.
Right, and then no one knows. Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough because there's just. I mean, isn't it the same with the Star Wars movies that you need to have like top security on all of these things?
Oh yeah.
You give people. You don't even give actors scripts.
Yeah, I remember when the first Star Trek movie was coming out, the new cast that J.J. Abrams was at the helm of, like they had to have like certain protections, like certain tents, like on set to prevent the drones from coming in and like flying in and looking at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the future, I think the only thing you can do is just film a whole bunch of irrelevant footage, and like film like you have to like film like 3 different or 4 different like
That's such a waste of money, though.
plots.
Such a
Oh
waste of
yeah,
money.
absolutely. But it's the only thing that can be done. I think it's just film a fake movie and then piece it together.
Or do
in a different way.
do what Return of the Jedi did, which is essentially they filmed out in like these Californian redwoods, I think it was, and they called the movie shoot Blue Harvest.
Yeah.
That's what they did, and then like it was a fake movie shoot, and then everybody's like, "Oh, what the fuck? Who cares about that? We want Star Wars. That's not Star Wars. Let's get out of there." So that's what they could do. To wrap this up, it feels weird that the teaser for the final season is already here. Game of Thrones is almost done. This has been an 8-long-year ride, and it feels weird that it's gonna be over. Like the whole thing is just done soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the Naomi Watts thing is
The prequel.
yeah, will softens the blow a little bit, but I don't know. It does seem weird that it's coming to an end. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially for you and me who have like spent so much time and effort, and you know with our channels and things like that, where you're like, oh my god, like this is kind of the end of a big thing. Yeah.
This is the end of the show, but obviously not the end of the books. These motherfuckers are still...
Right.
We're still waiting for Winds of Winter, which is going to have a plethora of content available to it, which we will cover slowly but surely, just like Fire and Blood. But no, I was never... The only feeling I could really connect this to would be like the feeling of when Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, came out for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it felt like, oh, it's over. The saga is finally complete. Little did I know, about 7 years later.
Right. But I do remember that feeling, like, oh man, like this is it.
This is over. It's done. There's no more now. This is all we're gonna get. It's a hollow feeling, but you feel like... I think Kevin Smith said it best when he saw... Because they did an interview with a bunch of celebrities about the original Star Wars movies, and Kevin Smith said when he finished Return of the Jedi, he said like, "This is it. It's over. I've completed this. I can die happy now." You know? It's almost like that feeling. Like I wish I could say that because the last 2 seasons were kind of meh, but I'm generally excited for season 8. I really am.
Yeah, but that's the new thing about media, though, is that nothing ever ends, right? It's like regular life, where it just keeps going until you know it lingers around until you know it's past its prime, and then everyone kind of says, maybe it's best if they're gone, you know, like.
That's so true. I used to love like True Blood on HBO. I used to love True Blood, and then it overstayed its welcome. And I heard
and
this...
then overstayed. It's overstayed.
Yeah.
Like, True Blood went way beyond. It was so good. Those first 2 seasons were so good.
I would
And then
argue
it
the
just got
first 3
so
seasons
bad.
were great. I've actually never seen an episode of The Sopranos, but didn't The Sopranos also overstay its welcome?
I never watched The Sopranos, but I was thinking about Battlestar and how good Battlestar was, and then how weak Battlestar's last season was, and then they tried to continue things on with a prequel series as well, and the prequel series didn't go anywhere.
Right.
And so the memory of Battlestar really like went out with a whimper, which is. But if you remember, like during the height of Battlestar, like man, like we were really, like everyone was living and breathing it. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of had such a poor ending that it ruined the entire series for people, left a bad taste in their mouth. So I mean, let's hope that doesn't happen with Game of Thrones. But it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible to have such a bad final season that it just ruins the memory of the whole thing.
Is that the whole thing with Lost?
Yeah, absolutely. Or Dexter.
Dexter. That's the number one I always hear about. In fact, one of my favorite shows of all time, one of my favorite comedies of all time, How I Met Your Mother. The last season, abysmal. Absolutely dreadful.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's amazing that can happen. I mean, sometimes it's like forgiven, you know? You kind of recognize that there's one bad season. It's like TNG, right? Like, it's not like season 7 of TNG is that great, but it's good enough. It's good enough, and you know, it's not like season 1 of TNG is horrible, but like they're not so bad that you don't, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, like you just kind of remember, the whole series as being good, despite the fact that like season 1 and season 7 were not great. But but with some of them, Battlestar, Dexter, like True Blood. With True Blood, it was just so many bad seasons. If it was only one bad season, maybe they would have gotten over it.
No, as it went on, it was just dreadful. At one point, I didn't even watch the final season of True Blood. It was so bad. It did not go anywhere. For me, it's always like that. For me, that's what it is with comedies. How I Met Your Mother, last season sucked. Scrubs, final season was awful. Then they tried doing a revival, season 8, whatever you call it. That was bad. Season 9, that was bad. The last season of Friends, for me, not that good. It's just...
Yeah, at least with Friends, I think Friends is one that was forgiven. Like, the last season was just lukewarm, but it didn't... But, like, the people that love Friends, like, love Friends, and they rewatch it over and over and over again still.
Of course.
Like, did you read about that Netflix deal?
Oh, $100 million for Friends, of course. And what's funny, too, what's funny... People don't watch Friends as much. They watch The Office. That's the only reruns they watch. The most on Netflix is The Office. $100 million for Friends? No, you're spending your money on the wrong place. The Office is where the views are at.
Man. But I do know people that just, I mean, I had an ex who just, when she was bored, she would just put on, like, her friend. She owned all the box sets, but she just put on the box sets, and she would just rewatch Friends episodes over and over again. I was like, okay, that was her thing. But yeah, people love it. People love that series, even if the last season is meh. I mean, I would say it's not bad. It's just meh. Forgettable.
Yeah, but regardless, season 8 is fast approaching, and I'm ready. Let's get this over with. And before we finish this up, shout out to Jay Wassa on Reddit, because he pointed out that you can start an episode a day on February 6th and be done with season 7 by April 13th, just in time to catch up. So, if you guys want to get into Game of Thrones, or obviously you're watching this because you're into it, but if you want to, come back on the whole series again, start on February 6th and watch one episode a day, and by the end of season 7, the next day will be season 8. So I might do something like that. I like the first 5 seasons, even though season 5 and 4 is kind of meh for me. I still think the first 5 seasons were great. Season 6 and 7 are just not my cup of tea. I just don't like them.
So, a lot of people really hate season 5. That's the Dornish season, right?
Yeah, that's the one where the sand snakes appear. And even though they are annoying, I think season 5 will always be great for having 2 dreaded episodes. See, episode 8, Hard Home, was a dread. I consider that a dreaded episode. And episode 9 had the Shireen burning and the Dany fly off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I might maybe I'll binge it again. We'll see. It's a lot of episodes, though.
That is a lot of episodes. You know what we should do in the future, though? I really don't want to say this because there are people who watch this and take our ideas and make it as their own. But I feel like as though this is something you and I could do and be a lot of fun. We should. If you want, we should sit down one day and watch season 1 and just do like commentary. Like, how Red Letter Media has commentary for the Star Wars movies?
Yeah. No, we should. That would be a freaking blast, actually. If we get it, but especially if we get drunk.
I can't get drunk because I just won't speak English. You won't understand me.
I forgot. Yeah. You're a teetotaler. I forgot.
I'm a what? What's the term? Teetotaler?
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
It means somebody that doesn't drink.
Yes, I'm a lightweight punk, and I also when I do get fucked up, I don't speak English, so no one will understand me except for a very few select group of people who speak Portuguese. So.
Well, Portuguese translators.
But guys, no. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Also, be sure to check out, because I know a lot of you guys were asking about this, and thank God Preston didn't ask me to join him for this. Preston recently put out a Night Flyers review. Definitely check that out, because I know a lot of you guys were asking for that. Preston, have anything to say about your Night Flyers review?
I mean, I did what I could. It was it was whatever series. I'm not gonna say it was great, but it wasn't. But because my expectations were really low, I watched it and I was like, yeah, it's all right.
It's all right. It's whatever.
It's fun. It's the funny thing about expectations, right? Like, you go into Game of Thrones and you're expecting like the best thing ever, and if it falls short, you're like, this is horrible. Or you watch into like The Last Jedi or whatever. Your expectations are so high. I walked Night Flyers. My expectations were so low, and so when something came out that was like, with there were definitely aspects of it I liked. I was like, huh, so it seems really good. But no, objectively speaking, it's it's whatever. So,
well, with Game of Thrones, you expect to go in and then you come out going, what the fuck? Scuba zombies? What the fuck was that? What the hell did that happen?
Scuba zombies.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time for, we're still doing the Fire and Blood chapters. Don't worry, we got you covered on that one. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.